Hello and welcome back to another video, and in this episode we are going to be talking about something quite sad, hard for me to talk about. No one died, it's nothing to do with a person, it's got to do with a car. And it's got to do with a car that I should have never ever let go. But first, please like, comment, and most importantly, subscribe. This helps me continue to create content for you. And best of all, it's free to subscribe. All right, let's get back to the video. Now, this car that I'm referring to is, of course, mentioned in the title. It's my Honda S2000. Now, I bought a Honda S2000 back in mid-2017. And I can say it is one of the best cars I have ever owned, and nothing has ever come close to it. And I'll explain in a moment. So pretty much what to expect in this episode is I'm more or less going to tell you the story, and I'm also going to convince you, if you already have an S2000, do not sell it. Ever. Basically, I bought my S2000 mid-2017 for 18,000 Australian dollars. The S2000 that I purchased is the AP1 1999 2.0 litre VTEC, revving to 9,000 RPM. Australia never got the 2.2 litre version. We were always stuck with the 2 litre. Now, this car stock does not make very impressive horsepower figures. I believe if you're looking on Google, it makes about 177 kilowatts at the wheel and 237 horsepower. Nothing really to rave on about, but that is not what the car is all about. The car is all about the experience, the feeling, and that's why I loved it so much. When I bought mine, there was a number of issues. I had faulty wiring, timing chain issues, which is quite common for those S2000s, faulty alarm, dodgy cruise control. Someone literally installed some weird cruise control system that almost killed me when I was driving. Ripped seats, faded paintwork because it's red. Rusty boot. There was a lot of water leaking into the boot and sitting on the underside under the carpet, so that was rusted. And there was also issues with the power windows. There were a few more things to mention that needed repair, but this was just more or less general maintenance. Now, over the years of ownership, I owned this car up until 2019. It is definitely not a long time, but I drove this thing everywhere. I believe I may have put on about 50,000 kilometers in that short time that I owned it because I loved it so much. I drove this thing absolutely everywhere. I daily drove it for a bit, and that was an absolute dream. There's things that I'll never be able to think back and say that I've driven any other car that gave me the smile that this car gave me every single time I drove it. The feeling of this car is flawless. It's the best feeling car. You can take it to the track, you can drive it. It's got a soft top. You can put the soft top down in winter or in summer. This thing handles like crazy. I had a Q300 exhaust system. It was loud. You can hear the VTEC. There's something about it. It was a compact car. I've never driven a Porsche before, but I have a feeling that that's exactly what it would have felt like. Probably the Honda comes out on top because of how high it can rev. But other than that, yes, there were issues that I purchased the car with. But at the time, the more expensive S2000s were going between 25k to 30, but you were expecting it to be decked out and nothing wrong with it, which I knew. Now, I ended up fixing everything with the mechanic through the time that I owned it. It was almost immediately. We fixed the faults in the electricals. Basically, all the electricals were ripped out and rewired. It cost me a fortune. Faulty alarm was fixed, replaced with a Viper. I got that dodgy cruise control removed. The ripped seats, I physically shipped over some black fresh seats. The faded paintwork was revived and it was detailed twice actually with protective coat. The rusty boot was patched and the leak was fixed. The issues with the power windows fixed. I also upgraded the sound system, putting speakers behind the headrest, was fantastic, especially when it was the top was down. You could actually hear the music. And finally, the car was dyno tuned at 240 horsepower because it had lost some power over the years. And obviously, I got a few more horses out of it in the end. But all the issues were fixed. Everything maintenance was fresh. Boots, bushes, everything. The car was immaculate at this point. There was only one thing left to do, and I was chasing more power at some point. But I sold it for $18,000 in late 2019. Now, I'm not going to go into why I sold it because the reasoning is quite stupid. Very, very stupid. I wasn't thinking straight. I thought I could buy another one later down the track. But then again, when a lot of people sell their cars for whatever reason, they assume that they can probably buy it again later. Obviously, COVID hits in 2020, the prices skyrocket. I was not actually going to buy one until I got a house, which happened in 22. And then I started looking and I was shocked. And I was like, fuck, well, I guess I'm not buying an S2000 because it's not a financially good thing to do right now, especially when I now have to pay double to buy my fucking car back. It's now in Queensland. The guy still has it. He's looked after it. He's done a lot of things to it. He doesn't want to sell it. So I've already tried to do that already. Try to buy back my own car. It's not happening. And that is the end of that. But what I can say, you may be thinking, S2000s aren't that great. S2000s are boring. S2000s are slow. Well, if you've never driven an S2000, you won't know that. If you have driven an S2000 and you don't have the same nostalgia, I guess it's just personal preference. Everyone's got a car in their life that they wish they kept and they always think about getting one back. That is why prices go up, especially in Australia. It's the older generation who had to sell their car to make for, family or personal commitments. They wish they had that car back and they go hunting, they jump on Facebook Marketplace only to realize that that car has tripled in price and they may or may not be able to financially afford that car again. And coming off the back of this example, this is where I sit with the S2000 dilemma. I can tell you now, I've driven a lot of cars and I will say that nothing has ever come close to the S2000, even still. The list of cars that I've driven since the S2000, and still will I not be happy with either of these cars. Yet I'm happy because I own two of them, or partially, but I'll never ever feel the same happiness that the S2000 gave me. I've driven a B18 swapped EG Civic, I've driven a B16 swapped EK Civic, a B16 Turbo EG Civic, an S15 Silvia, which you may have seen some previous videos. It's not mine, it's my friend's. A Megane 250 RS, that is the car that I own. I've driven a Megane 265 RS, a Hyundai i30N, a Mercedes AMG, an A45 AMG, a V8 XY GT. This is a legendary Australian car. A V8 XE Falcon, another Australian car. And lastly, a V8 Mustang Fastback. Now, those older cars that I just mentioned, those V8s, they are probably the only thing that come close to the experience because they are older, raw style cars. The Mustang is the only one that's manual, so I would say that is probably my favorite out of all the cars that I've driven other than the S2000. You may see more of that in the future. It's not my car, it's a family member's, but it's currently off the road, and I did drive that a lot when it was actually working. But nothing in comparison comes to the S2000. Regardless of how much power those cars that I've driven have, they were fucking boring. They just weren't the same. I am trying to chase similar experiences with my EG Civic, looking at K-swapping it, keeping it raw NA, but I know that'll never be the case because it's not a convertible, it's not a sturdy car, and I guess you have to spend a lot of money to make it as rigid as the S2000 comes stock. So at the end of the day, after many years of complaining to my friends and family that I should have never fucking sold my car the way I did, just spontaneously, when I never had to actually sell it, I could have just held on to it, I could have put it in storage. I tell you, if you own an S2000, don't sell it. hold on to it for dear life if you possibly can. And that even comes down to the car that you might love. You might love an S15, or you might love your Honda Civic. And the reality is, in this market, if you sell something, especially a rare car, there is probably a very minor chance that you will be able to buy that car back for around the same price that you paid. We're coming into a generation where electric vehicles seems to be the go. Less companies are making fun manual cars, and they don't make them like they used to. I'm sure you've heard that term before, but they just don't. So in that case, I will end this video on that note. Hold on to your cars if you love it. If you have an S2000, do not sell it. For the life of me, if I ever get one back, I'll be jumping with joy. And if you liked this type of content, even though it's a bit different to normal, please like, comment, and subscribe. You are most welcome to tell us a bit about your stories. You may have been in the same situation. Let us know in the comments. How did you cope? What did you do? Did you end up buying that car back? That would be a very interesting discussion to have, especially down in the comments where everyone can see and understand exactly what you went through, because I'm sure there's a lot of people in the same situation. But help me out again. Like, comment, subscribe. I will see you in the next video. Thank you. Take care.